Long ago, when the goddess Nuwa was repairing the sky, she melted down a great quantity of rock into 36,501 large building blocks. One single block was left unused. It lay at the foot of Green Sickness Peak and possessed magic powers. It could grow or shrink to any size it wanted. Later, a Buddhist monk and a Taoist priest brought this stone into the world of mortals, where, in time, it grew into one of the undisputed classics of Chinese literature, the story of the stone, also known as A Dream of Red Mansions. That laid-aside stone stands for both the protagonist of the novel, Jia Baoyu, and the author himself, Tsao Xueqin. In early 1728, by order of Emperor Yongzheng, the mansion attached to the Zhengning Imperial Silk Manufacturing Bureau in Nanjing was raided. For the Tsao family, who'd run the bureau for the better part of a century, it was the end of the line. That autumn, the Tsao family was ordered to move to Beijing. Among them was an unknown 13-year-old, Tsao Xueqin. When Tsao Xueqin went to Beijing with his family, the family fortunes were much diminished. Their assets and estates in Nanjing, Beijing and other places had all been confiscated. Now everything that had once belonged to the Tsao family had been handed over by Emperor Yongzheng to Xueqin, the man who had led the raid and taken over the bureau. Xueqin settled the Tsaos in a relatively humble residence in Beijing that had 17.5 rooms. In Beijing, Tsao Xueqin studied in a central government school. There he was taught by renowned scholars and had access to the royal collections of precious works of calligraphy and painting from different dynasties. Thanks to that stroke of good fortune, the young Tsao Xueqin was able to set aside the misfortune that had befallen his family and devote himself to absorbing Chinese culture. Tsao Yin, Tsao Xueqin's grandfather, was known as a child prodigy, but Tsao Xueqin was even more brilliant. Of all the notable people who've graduated from Beijing No. 3 Middle School, Tsao Xueqin is considered the greatest. The school was formerly known as the Right-Wing School, which, along with the Left-Wing School, was attended by children of Qing royalty. Tsao Xueqin himself once taught at the Right-Wing School, and it was probably during that time that he first conceived the idea of A Dream of Red Mansions.
这右翼中学呢，当时是有分科的，它有几个这个领域，一个当然就是教这个清书，就是满文；一个教汉书，一个教骑射。那曹雪芹大概不可能是教骑射，就是相当于我们现在认为的体育课。那这个汉书教习呢，它的这个竞争会非常的激烈，因为汉人的进士跟举人都会参加这个过程的，所以曹雪芹要在 这种竞争之下呢，他也不太容易抢到这个位置。但是呢，这个亲疏教习呢，就是其他人大概没有他这么好的一个条件。江陵织造府里面，因为他们是伺候皇帝的，所以满文绝对是他们家族里面必须非常熟悉的第一语言。
Among the students of the right-wing school, Tsao Xueqin befriended Dun Min and Dun Cheng, two brothers of royal descent. However, one of their ancestors had ended up on the losing side of a power struggle in the early Qing dynasty, so they were not dignitaries. Both brothers were talented literati and admired Tsao Xueqin's genius. Unsurprisingly, the trio soon became firm friends. From the poems written by the brothers, we catch a glimpse of Tsao Xueqin's personality, as well as his life story.
朋友们形容和曹雪芹接触相见的时候，他有时候也会歪戴着帽子，像王猛，就是后秦苻坚的谋士王猛，就是闷诗而谈天下事，那酣畅淋漓，侃侃而谈。有时也会喝酒入狂，击石作歌声朗朗，那种海涛般的激情。这个曹雪芹的感情他的非常丰富。
After Emperor Yongzheng's death, Cao Fu, son of Cao Yin, was reinstated by Emperor Qianlong. However, he ran into trouble again, resulting in a second raid on the Tsao family. The family would never rise again. The family's final fall from grace meant that Tsao Xueqin could no longer stay in the imperial capital. There was nothing for it but for him to move to the plain white banner barracks in the Western Hills on the outskirts of the city. So it was that the vicissitudes of fate gave Tsao Xueqin greater insights into the state of society. It was during this period that Tsao Xueqin started to write A Dream of Red Mansions, his magnum opus. He'd only just turned 30.
In chapter 5 of the book, when Zhe Baoyu comes to the land of illusion in a trance, he sees a dozen large cupboards with paper strips that says Jingling 12 Beauties of Main Register, Supplementary Register number 1 and Second Supplementary Register. Baoyu opens the Second Supplementary Register cupboard and takes one of the albums, the first page of which is covered with dark ink washes, representing storm clouds or fog, followed on the next page by a few lines of verse. Seldom the moon shines in a cloudless sky, and days of brightness all too soon pass by. A noble and aspiring mind, in a base-born frame confined, your charm and wit did only hatred gain, and in the end you were by slander slain, your gentle lord's solicitude in vain. These verses reveal the fate of Skybright, one of Baoyu's maids. When Wang Shifeng, a daughter-in-law of the Jia family, speaks of Skybright, she comments, Skybright is certainly the best looking of the maids. Not only is Skybright beautiful, she's also unmatched in terms of brilliance, competence and sense of duty. One winter, Baoyu is to attend the birth banquet of his uncle Wang Ziteng, for which occasion grandmother Jia gives him a peacock gold snow cape, which gleamed and glittered and is the last one left. Unexpectedly, the first time Baoyu goes out in the cape, a hole gets burned into it by sparks from his hand warmer. Wang Zitang's birthday banquet is the next day, and he has to wear the cape, so the maids bring it out to be mended. However, the menders, tailors, embroiderers, seamstresses all say they don't know what the material is and don't want to be responsible for it. Skybright, sick in bed, asks to see the cape and sees that it's been woven with peacock gold thread and says, "If we could get hold of some of the thread and make a little darn with it, I think it would probably pass."
他是带着重病是吧？可以说连命都搭上了。请问他长得好，他的手艺还好，别人都不会。这种界线之法是比较高级的一种织补工艺，所以他就说不得我称命罢了。这个情节呢，就是非常充分地写出了晴雯对贾宝玉的情谊，是吧？他是担心竭力，是吧？不顾自己的病势越来越沉重，怎么也把这个缺金裘的褂子给你补好了。
Of all the servants in the Jar mansion, Skybright had the humblest origins. She was brought into the house by Lai Da, an old servant, when she was 10. She didn't know where she was from or who her parents were, not even her real name. Later, Lai Da's mother gave Skybright to Grandmother Jia, who, appreciating her good looks and competence, sent her to serve Bao Yu. Tsao Xueqin depicted Skybright as a servant with a noble and aspiring mind. On one occasion, Bao Yu hurries back to his residence in the rain. When the maids don't open the door for him fast enough, he throws a tantrum, kicking the one who comes to the door and calling her names. Then, when he realizes that this servant is Aroma, the head maid, he feels sorry. Meanwhile, Aroma, despite the pain, helps him change with a smile, saying he had every reason to kick and scold her, as she should have set a better example. What if Bao Yu had kicked Skybright? How would she have responded? The day after the kicking, Skybright accidentally drops a fan on the floor and snaps the bone fan spines, prompting Bao Yu to call her clumsy. She talks back immediately. "You're getting quite a temper lately, Master Bao. Almost every time we move nowadays, we get a nasty look from you. Yesterday, even Aroma caught it. Today you're finding fault with me, so I suppose I can expect a few kicks too. Well, kick away." As head maid, Aroma hurries in to mediate, saying that she knew as soon as she turned her back there'd be trouble. Hearing this, Skybright is angered even more and sneers, "I suppose it's because you serve him so well that he gave you a kick in the ribs yesterday. Heaven knows what he's got in store for me for having served him so badly." Bao Yu, so irritated by all the fuss, threatens to expel Skybright, and the crisis is only resolved when Aroma kneels down to beg for mercy, followed by all the other maids. Interestingly enough, when Bao Yu comes home at night from a drinking party, he's in such a good mood that he tries to please Skybright, saying that she could tear the fans up if that would give her pleasure. Hearing this, Skybright gladly plays along and tears up 2 fans. This episode is one of the most iconic scenes in the novel.
Of all of Baoyu's maids, the one I like the most is Xueqin, because she has some of the qualities of Lin Daiyu, but she's not so difficult. You know, she's a more spontaneous, a very I like her lively way of talking and her character. I just like her character personally. That's all. It's hard to explain.
我想这里头啊，有一种所谓青春小说的那种理想主义，是吧？青春小说里边，特别愿意写到少女的这种纯洁、美丽、聪明，是吧？忠诚，是吧？这个情商非常高，又很能干。所以晴雯呢，它有这些特点，是吧？另外晴雯呢，相对来说呢，她和贾宝玉和林黛玉引为知心的呢，就是她不管那套，不管我说话你爱听不爱听，反正我自己没有邪念，没有邪恶的东西，对别人我也没有恶意，所以她很放得开的，包括对贾宝玉，她也不拍马屁，是吧？跟贾宝玉也可以发脾气，也可以生气，也可以不理，也可以见着贾宝玉回过身去，她是属于这种性格的人。
After the discovery of an embroidered purse with an erotic design in the Prospect Garden where Bao Yu resides, Lady Xing and Lady Wang, his aunt and mother, initiate a farcical raid, targeting every young master, lady, and maid. In the storming of the Green Delights, Bao Yu's residence in the Prospect Garden, Aroma set the other maids an example by opening her own trunks and boxes first. But when they get to Skybright, who is ill, she simply flung the lid open with a bang, picked the trunk up by its bottom and emptied its contents on the floor. Embarrassed, Lady Xing's maid explains that she is just obeying her ladyship's orders. At this, Skybright blazes up in fury. Pointing at the old woman, she says, "You say you are here on her ladyship's orders, well, I'm here on her old ladyship's orders. Anyway, I thought I knew all the women who worked at her ladyship's place, and I'm sure I never saw a self-important, meddlesome old busybody like you there before."
Naturally, Tsao Xueqin and his family could easily relate to Skybright's story. They themselves originated as slaves at the turn of the Ming and Qing dynasties. About 100 years before Tsao Xueqin was born, the later Jin army, led by Nurhaci, was capturing one city after another of the Shanhai Pass in his quest to conquer all of eastern Liaoning. One day, around the year of 1620, when the later Jin army had just reached a town in eastern Liaoning, two figures staggered among the marching prisoners. Their names were Tsao Shiyuan, Tsao Xueqin's great-great-great-grandfather, and his son, Tsao Junyan. Father and son survived as prisoners, albeit with a new identity, boy aha, which is a Manchu word meaning houseperson or boy slave. At the time of the later Jin dynasty, all ethnic Manchu males and families were divided among 8 military administrative organizations called the 8 Banners. Members of these banners were civilians in times of peace and soldiers when war broke out. The Tsaos belonged to various banners over the course of 30 years. At first, they were under the plain yellow banner, before they were transferred to the plain white banner, which, as of 1651, was commanded by Qing Emperor Shunzhi. So it was that their days serving the imperial household began. Behind all those constant and dramatic changes lay the violent power struggles of the early Qing dynasty, in which families were torn apart and people killed. The Imperial Household Department in which the Tsaos served was an official body established in the early Qing dynasty. Knowing full well how eunuchs had interfered in politics during the previous Ming dynasty, the Qing regime considered it necessary to divide and limit their power. Hence the birth of the Imperial Household Department, which catered to the royal family's daily needs, oversaw issues such as security, rights, engineering projects, silk manufacturing, and management of eunuchs and maids, and was normally headed by a royal family member or high-ranking official.
说到内务府的重要，慈禧后期呢也想变法立宪，但是他也说了一个前提，有5不义，就是5件事情变法立宪不能碰的问题。第一个就是清朝的那个中枢机关军机处之事不能议。第二一个不能议，有内务府之事不能议。第三一个八旗制度不能议。翰林院的事不能议，太监的事不能议。内务府就是皇家家天下的一个特殊机构。八旗制度这是满洲统治民族一种军民军政统一的基本的管理制度，我认为这是理解曹雪芹的一个前提。
Since Tsao Xiyuan was a boy slave, his son Tsao Junyan was one too. However, historical records show that there was more to Tsao Junyan than just being a slave. Studies show that Tsao Junyan in his youth was promoted for excellence in performance to Jiangshi, or an administrator, an inferior position within his banner. According to another record, however, in 1636, Tsao Xunyan was accused of bribing his superior with 20 taels of silver. He denied the charge, but was still flogged 80 times as a punishment. Two years later, he received the same punishment. Once again, the accusation was groundless. Those two incidents were on record, while in fact countless other punishments must have been inflicted upon him. During the mid-17th century, Tsao Junyuan became a scholar via the imperial examination system. The Tsaos had begun a winning streak. Since they had served Manchu rulers before, they were deemed more trustworthy than the average Han Chinese. Tsao Junyuan was appointed to the magistracy of Shanxi before serving as a high-ranking salt commissioner. Next, Tsao Shi, son of Tsao Junyuan and great-grandfather of Tsao Xueqin, became head of the Jiangning Silk Manufacturing Bureau. For the following 6 decades, the position became the almost exclusive preserve of the Tsao family. During that time, Lady Sun, prior to becoming Tsao Shi's wife, was Prince Xuanye's nanny. For that reason, once the prince ascended the throne at the age of 7 to become Emperor Kangxi, the Tsaos remained in favor with the emperor and his household.
包衣身份、农历身份、农才身份是一辈子的，是世袭的。就是说，曹雪芹他们家在江南再怎么是成为江南望族，但是他对皇帝来讲，他还是农才，农才。这方面的话，就是说曹雪芹的爷爷曹寅的很多诗当中都流出。这个农才的命运呢，尽管农才很富贵，但不一样啊，你的地位在那个地方啊。那么《红楼梦》当中那个赖大家的，你记得不记得他的赖大他妈妈给赖大的儿子花钱捐了一个官，是个县太爷。这个时候老太太和他讲说：“你小子啊，你别现在就是说觉得你神气了。你知道‘农才’两个字是怎么写的吗？”这其实也反映出曹雪芹他们家这个包衣身份也是永远不变的。
Who, shivering once in rags, bemoaned his fate, today finds fault with scarlet robes of state. In such commotion does the world's theatre rage. As each one leaves, another takes the stage. In vain we roam. Each in the end must call a strange land home. These are lines from the famous Wandong song in A Dream of Red Mansions, and in a way they reflect the fate of the Tsao family for generations. Even when they held an important office far from the capital, they had, in truth, never been anything more than household servants to the emperor.
In the Land of Illusion, another maid whose name was found in the second supplementary register cupboard was Aroma. Born into an impoverished household, Aroma's father and brother sold her into the Jar mansion to be a maid. Thanks to her diligence, she soon became one of the few head maids with a monthly salary of 1 tael of silver. Once her family's fortunes improved, her brother wanted to buy her back from the Jar family, but Aroma opposed strongly, for she then had a new goal of becoming Bao Yu's concubine.
这个女孩子很有心机的，很有心机的，她所有的心机都在宝玉身上。所以你从她的观点上，她爱的这个人，她当然不愿意别人来抢啊。她也知道宝玉除了她以外，丫鬟里边最喜欢的是晴雯嘛。如果她妒忌晴雯，也是很人性的。
Aroma is inferior to Skybright in terms of both looks and competence. Therefore, to fulfill her goal, Aroma needs something more than just hard work to make up for her lack of talent. In one scene, Bao Yu is cruelly beaten by his father, Jia Zheng. Seizing the chance, Aroma says manipulatively to his mother, Lady Wang, "I wonder if I might be rather bold and say something very outspoken to your ladyship. Only I was afraid you might take it amiss, and then not only should I have spoken to no purpose, but I should leave myself without even a grave to lie in." Lady Wang, taking the bait, tells Aroma to speak out as long as she keeps it between them. Then Aroma suggests getting Bao Yu moved back outside the prospect garden. Startled, Lady Wang asks if he'd been doing something dreadful with one of the girls. Aroma explains that he and the young ladies are beginning to mature, and though they are all cousins, the fact that they are different sexes means that it is natural to feel uneasy about their relationship. The truth is, of the hundreds of young ladies and maids in the prospect garden, Aroma is the only one to have had intimate relations with Bao Yu, so it's with a strong dose of irony that she says it's impossible not to feel uneasy given the difference of sex between them. Aroma's bold gambit pays off. Lady Wang, feeling nothing but love and gratitude for Aroma, laughs and says, "It is very perceptive of you, my dear, to have thought it all out so carefully. You are a very, very good girl. I am going to place Bao Yu entirely in your hands."
In the autumn of 1759, Yinji Shan, Governor-General of the region south of the Yangtze River and Jiangxi province, invited Tsao Xueqin to Nanjing to serve in the governor's mansion as an advisor. It was an abrupt decision, seemingly incompatible with his lofty character. There was, however, a reason for his trip to Nanjing. Yinji Shan was a famed scholar and politician who held the position of Governor-General, despite being just 35. During the mid-18th century, Emperor Qianlong toured the south as his grandfather had done. Given that the Tsao family had received Emperor Kangxi 4 times, and that Tsao Xueqin was also a famed scholar in the capital, Yinji Shan therefore invited him to join his advisory staff as preparations to receive Emperor Qianlong were being made. As their two families went way back and he hadn't visited Nanjing for over 30 years, Tsao Xueqin gladly agreed. When he revisited the mansion attached to the Jiangning Imperial Silk Manufacturing Bureau where he was born, and saw that the massive mansion had been turned into Emperor Qianlong's temporary residence with its magnificent halls and pavilions, he suddenly felt as if his childhood had become a distant dream. What's more, the great Yangtze River, running by the city of Nanjing day and night, made him feel that success and failure didn't seem to matter that much. But Tsao Xueqin's job in Nanjing was not at all pleasant. In those days, a guest behind the curtain was also known as a literary gentleman patron, who helped with advice for a high official or general. Normally, Tsao Xueqin was eloquent and loquacious when expressing himself in writing or speech, yet in the governor's mansion he was often gloomy and silent. Tsao Xueqin wasn't the only advisor in the mansion, and his impression of his colleagues is clearly expressed in A Dream of Red Mansions. the advisors of Jia Zheng were given names like Zhan Guang, Shan Penrun, Wu Silai, and Cheng Rixing, respectively homophones for parasite, liar, hothead, and troublemaker. His disdain for them was obvious. But to be fair, the advisors weren't all useless. Tsao even had Jia Baoyu make positive remarks about their poems and paintings. Sadly, when catering to their patrons' needs, the advisors would play dumb and act ingratiatingly. Tsao Xueqin, who had a strong sense of honor, would never want to live such an obsequious life. As he wrote in the novel, even if they are born in the lowest stratum of society, under no circumstances will you find them in servile or menial positions, content to be at the beck and call of mediocrities. Dun Min, Tsao Xueqin's student, gives an account of a true event in one of his poems. It's autumn in Beijing, 1 year after Tsao Xueqin's trip to the south. Dun Min is on his way to visit a friend when he hears a loud conversation next door. One of the voices sounds like Tsao Xueqin's. Pleasantly surprised, Dun Min hurries over and finds that it's really him. It is a joyous reunion that Dun Min simply has to commemorate in verse. A crane in the flock of chickens you are. Hearing your voice fills me with passion. Suddenly, we meet again. Vigorously, we shake hands. Increasingly, I feel life is as fickle as the floating clouds. Tsao Xueqin, resenting the life under someone else's roof in Nanjing, returned to Beijing's western hills, where he committed himself to the writing of a dream of red mansions. Aisin Gyoro Fupeng, his cousin and a grandson of Tsao Yin, was the prince of a commandery, which meant Tsao Xueqin could easily move up the social ladder. By that point, however, nothing could distract him from his devotion to literary matters.
In A Dream of Red Mansions, Skybright fails to find a place where she feels as if she belongs. After establishing that Skybright is a young flibberty-gibbet, Lady Wang, Jia Baoyu's mother, comes to the Green Delights in a raging tempest and drags Skybright, who hasn't eaten for 5 days, off her sickbed and has her expelled from the Prospect Garden.
她的果实，第一是她长得漂亮，模样长得好；第二呢，她的言语尖利，就说话比较厉害了哈。这个引起了当时这个大观园里头很多人的对她的这个不满意啊。王夫人就不满意，说你这个像一个病西施似的，你张开谁来看，是吧？长得漂亮也是一个罪状，那个说话比较尖利一点也是她的罪状。
Baoyu has absolutely no sense of hierarchy. For him, even the lowliest maid, if she happened to be kind and outstanding, could be a saint in his eyes. He says on one occasion that he knew something awful would happen when he sees that half of the crabapple tree in the courtyard had died. All the paragons of the vegetable world, such as the juniper tree in front of the Temple of Confucius, the milfoil that grows beside his tomb, the cypress in front of Zhuge Liang's shrine, the pine tree that grows in front of Yue Fei's grave, had withered and dried up in times of disorder, only to flourish once again when better times came round again. His outburst is received immediately with a rebuke from Aroma. Comparing Skybright with all those famous people, What sort of creature do you think she is anyway? And even if she is so wonderful, you seem to forget that I have precedence over her among your maids. When Bao Yu takes a risky trip to visit Skybright on her dying bed, she's pleasantly surprised, whimpering as she holds his hand. It can't be more than 4 or 5 days now at the most. If it weren't for one thing, I could die content. I know I'm a bit better looking than the others, but I've never tried to make up to you. Why will they insist that I am some sort of vampire? It's so unfair. And now I have so little time left. I ought not to say this, but if I'd known in advance that it would be like this, I might have... After that, she chokes and speaks no more. Later that night, Skybright passes away.
就是唯一的愿望就是不要离开怡红院，所以他说要跟贾宝玉换袄，这样子的话呢，我这个躺在棺材里头，还依然在怡红院里头一样了。俞平伯先生据说这是惨极之笔啊！但是就这一点愿望也不能得到实现，王夫人就即刻把他搬到外去，把他火化了。有的学者说，这个他们的这个两个人的诀别啊，临时的诀别啊，就好像一道彩虹，照亮了大观园。我觉得这个话说得非常好。
晴雯死了，晴雯死对在前8出来说，对宝玉是最严重的打击，就是晴雯之死。晴雯死了以后，宝玉的那个心境。从一个青少年，不管青少年，他就是有多悲痛啊，但是青少年的这个时候晴雯死了以后，他看人世兴衰，这个时候的体验深了，他的心境转悲凉了。
Bao Yu hears from a little maid that Skybright didn't die, but went to heaven to be a flower spirit, looking after the hibiscus bushes and lotuses, which were at that moment blooming in the prospect garden. Bao Yu, whose sorrow turned instantly into delight, points to the lotus and says with a smile, "Such a flower is worthy to be looked after by such a person." In Chinese culture, lotus is a symbol of the virtuous soul. Bao Yu composes a long poem in memory of Skybright called The Spirit of the Hibiscus. It is now 16 years since the blessed spirit descended into the world of men. It is to be recorded of her that in estimation she was more precious than gold or jade, in nature more pure than ice or snow, in wit more brilliant than the sun or stars, in complexion more beautiful than the moon or than flower. I by my rosy misted casement seem most cruelly afflicted, and you beneath the yellow earth seem most cruelly ill-fated. The tears of Runan fall in bloody drops upon the wind, and the complaint of Golden Valley is made to the moon in silence.
It's very moving, I think. Though the bond between us was a slight one, yet can it not easily be broken. And because she was ever close to me in my thoughts, I could not forbear to make earnest inquiry concerning her. Thus it was revealed to me that the God had sent down the banner of his authority and summoned her to his palace of flowers, to the end that she who in life was like a flower should in death have dominion over the hibiscus. At first, when I heard the words of the little maid touching this appointment, I thought them fantastical, but now that I have pondered them in my heart, I know them to be worthy of perfect credence.
The Spirit of the Hibiscus stands out among nearly 100 poems in the book. Not only does it demonstrate Tsao Xueqin's brilliance as a poet, but also functions as a kind of ode to all the anonymous common people in Chinese history who've displayed nobility of character despite their humble birth. Tsao Xueqin, who lived in humiliation all his life, was yearning for an ideal world, a heaven for wonderful people like Skybright.
因为古往今来，我们可以记到很多人，记到亡妻、悼亡题材，大家能够接受。但是呢，记到这个女奴记到这个奴婢写这样的一首长篇的累文，在我们的这个文学史上还是比较少见的，也体现出《红楼梦》当中超越等级的这样的一种对于平等关爱的一种追求。
而且有几句话完全就是把晴雯的人格抬到跟屈原那样的一个高度，同时呢，通过季晴雯也表明宝玉对晴雯之间的那种感情是纯洁的、清白的。
《红楼梦》啊，人们喜欢说它是中国封建社会的一个这个挽歌，是对它的一个追悼。就是这个封建社会快完蛋了，封建社会里有许多黑暗的东西，在《红楼梦》里边都有。另一方面呢，又有人性的光辉、青春的光彩，又有像晴雯这样的能干、热情、随意、不在乎。虽然晴雯最后呢，她还是被误解、被压制，是吧？被贬低，以至于被驱逐，她是很不幸的。但是她已经表现出来的那点光亮，也给人难忘的印象。所以《红楼梦》他写了一个那么肮脏、那么恶劣的一个没落的贵族家庭，但同时呢，他也仍然让你看到希望。
The so-called Golden Age that encompassed the reigns of Emperors Kangxi and Qianlong was in reality a turbulent time. In Tsao Xueqin's magnum opus, every word is soaked in blood. But the important thing is that the author offers his readers a ray of hope, however faint it may be. It's that quality that makes the book a timeless classic.
我所居心，青耕之风。我所有心，鸿蒙太空，鸿蒙太空。渺渺茫茫兮，归避大荒，归避大